All right, it is 6:30. I'll call this meeting to order. I am Pam Cotter. I'd like to welcome everyone here out tonight. I would like that you would turn off your cell phones, but if you need to take a call, please take it out in the hallway, and I thank you for that. I have asked a very, very special friend of mine. His name is Quade Short. I have known Quade Short before he was born. And he will be graduating from Murray High School. And he is one of my citizens. And so I've asked him to come and say the pledge for me. Thank you, Quade.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Quade. I appreciate that. Okay, we will now be, there are no approval of any minutes for today. None scheduled. We have a special recognition. Murray City Employee of the Month, Phyllis Wall, Treasurer Clerk, CSR, presenting Brenda Moore. And I know my name is on there, but I asked the mayor to do this presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Pam. Come on up, Phyllis. Come way up here. I love it. I love doing this to people that don't want this. So we started Employee of the Month. Oh gosh, I was on the council for 10 years, so about 9 years ago. We thought it was important to recognize our employees, and Phyllis is an amazing employee. Always happy, always smiling at me. I can see her through the window, and she's just really a happy person. You've been with us, I won't steal Brenda's thunder, but about almost 10 years. And we just, as the council and the mayor, and we used to do this separate, it used to be the council, but we decided to do it together, which I think is an honor that we are doing this together as a council and the administration. So from the council and the administration, we want to recognize you and give you a $50 gift card that we would like to have you buy breakfast in the morning for us. So kidding, yeah, that's yours. So anyway, and then here's a certificate for you, and with this, and then Brenda, do you need this? Oh, President, she's got it memorized. So anyway, and then we'll have your name on the plaque, and it will follow our building wherever we are, so you'll be known forevermore. So without any further ado, thank you, Phyllis, for all you do. Now we'll turn the time over to Brenda. You need to stay up, Phyllis.
So I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about why I nominated Phyllis for this. As we have been transitioning between treasurers, Phyllis has taken all the duties on the treasurer was doing, the day-to-day, get the Murray City money into the bank in a timely manner, process all the payments. She is always a very steady person in our department. As people come in to make their payments, she has some citizens who come in monthly to have a chat with Phyllis, and they get very upset when Phyllis is not the person there taking her payment. So that is just a testament to how kind and how nice she is to all of our citizens as they come in and deal with the treasurer's office. She's also very empathetic when they come in because their power has been turned off for whatever reason, and works as hard as she can to help them. She cares about Murray City and about making sure that Murray City's funds are used appropriately and are taken in and timely. She's a very great team member with all of the other customer service representatives and working with finance, and she will do whatever she is asked to do, and that's why she is our Employee of the Month. Just introduce you.
Okay, I'll just tell you. That's my husband taking my picture. His name is Dean. And Krista, Colby, and Zachary are 3 of my 4. And Zachary, how about? They all look the same. Naomi and Callie. I didn't say them in order, so I can't. Anyway, but thank you.
And yes, you can all go home.
Thank you. Okay, our next special recognition is consider a joint resolution of the Murray Municipal Council and Mayor in support of the people in Ukraine. Mayor Hales is presenting along with Gary, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cotter. We did plan the blue and the yellow. Actually, we didn't. I wore blue and he wore yellow, and it just worked out that way. So we thought we'd stand up here together. So whereas, as citizens of the global community, the tragedy and horror of human suffering unfolding in the invasion of Ukraine as the Ukrainian people endure the assault of the Russian military invasion of their country are harrowing. And whereas, even though we may be limited in how we can directly influence events more than 5,000 miles away, we cannot look away from and ignore the violent, armed, and unprovoked Russian government aggression. And whereas Murray City stands with the people of Ukraine, the City Council and Mayor want to make it known our support for Ukrainians and for democratic values. And whereas, following the collapse and dissolution of the Soviet Union, the Ukrainian people chose overwhelmingly the path of self-determination by forming a nation independent from Russia. And whereas, since independence in 1991, Ukraine has been forced to confront a Russian invasion, occupation, and annexation of Ukraine's Crimea region, a Russian-led conflict in eastern Ukraine, a weakening of Ukrainian control of the nearby Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, and most recent February 24, 2022, all-out invasion. And whereas Russian soldiers currently move through Ukraine inflicting violence, terror, and death. They are destroying homes, businesses, schools, hospitals, and property. Ukrainian civilians and soldiers have been killed or wounded, and more than 1 million refugees have fled Ukraine seeking safety in neighboring countries. And whereas the attack on Ukraine violates the Budapest Memorandum, a 1994 agreement between the United States, Russia, and Great Britain. As part of the agreement, Russia committed to respect the independence and sovereignty of the existing borders of Ukraine, and to refrain from the threat or use of force against Ukraine. And whereas the courageous Ukrainian people are standing up for their freedoms and for their desire to live in a nation free from tyranny and free from Russian aggression. And whereas the brave women and men who have taken to the streets in Ukraine are standing for freedoms that would be denied by the Russian authoritarian regime. And whereas the tragic irony between the Russian government leader's actions and his rhetoric should not be lost on the international community, where he is killing thousands of Ukrainians and destroying property while claiming that Ukraine is an inherent part of our own history, culture, and spiritual space. And whereas we call for the international community to come together to demand an end to the war and for Russian Federation to remove its troops from Ukraine. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Murray City Municipal Council and the Murray City Mayor as follows. We join the international community in sharing its disbelief, anger, and sorrow. We express support for the people of Ukraine on their courageous efforts to defend their homeland and to advance freedom and democracy in Ukraine. We condemn in the strongest possible terms the Russian government's violent aggression and invasion of Ukraine. We remind all people that we will not let the aggression of Russia's authoritarian government affect our treatment of the Russian people, including local Russian community members who have had no role in its policies. We stand with Ukraine. Thank you. And as an individual who I am a third Ukrainian. My great-grandparents immigrated from Ukraine. I'm glad that we could do this as a council and as the mayor. So thank you.
I would like, let's see, I can make that motion. I'm just trying to find the actually somebody else might have to make the motion, but I'll second it.
Diane, why don't you take it from here? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adopt the joint resolution of the Murray Municipal Council and Mayor in support of the people in Ukraine.
I'll second.
I will second that. Oh, sorry.
Is there any discussion?
I would like to just add on to this and recognize, especially because kids who are of Russian descent have been bullied. It's unfortunately not their choice what has been going on, and I want to recognize the families who stand with Ukraine who are Russian and recognize that they too do not want this, and that we just take in consideration how our kids are being treated in schools as well. So thank you. But with that, my vote is aye.
Brooke, could you do a roll call for me? Thank you.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you for that. Okay. We will go on to citizen comments now.
Just really quickly for citizen comments before we jump in there. I spoke with Jill about this earlier, so this was the point. I was told to insert it, but at my current company, I sit on the Women's Initiative Network, and today I want to recognize that it's International Women's Day. And so I'm sitting here with three here and one on the phone, women who are strong leaders within Murray City, and I just want to recognize you all on International Women's Day. So
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, so this is how it will be going. The speaker has up to 3 minutes to make their comments unless given prior approval for additional time or 5 minutes of speaking for a group. Please step to the microphone, state your name and address. Make sure you fill out a form from our council director, Jennifer Kennedy, over here. This is not the time for speakers who would like to address a public hearing. Comments for public hearing will be given during the public hearing presentation. And do we have any public comments at all? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Horman. And where I live is basically where I'm standing at any given moment. First thing, when I was here last week, I mentioned the county's MVP program, Medically Vulnerable People Program. They passed that in the county offices and the county committee today. So I just thought you would be interested in knowing that. And I encourage the members of this council and the mayor's office to help out with that program and any other homeless programs as much as possible where they can. There will be, I assume there's going to be buildings and programs put in place to allow those who are medically vulnerable and homeless to have a place where they can recover from illnesses and get themselves healthy so that they can go back and continue to participate in society without difficulty. And again, I encourage the city to help the county wherever they can with that. On the note of helping the homeless in other regards, and I don't mean this to come across as any sort of a guilt trip, I'm telling you from the personal experience of somebody who was, and probably for a while will be homeless, the programs that are being used are not as effective as they can be, and people who are working to try and make the programs better or make better programs, this is not happening fast enough. And the things that will help out most, as much as any funding, is to look at your laws and your ordinances and interpret them in favor of things instead of against them. You don't necessarily have to look for new laws or put new laws in place. Simply look at the laws and ordinances you have and see if there's a way to interpret them in a way that is more friendly towards those who need the help that they need. So that's basically it. Thank you very much.
Comments this evening? Okay, there's no other comments. We will go on to, thank you for your comments, sir. There are no consent agendas tonight, so we will go on to public hearing number 1, which is considered an ordinance relating to land use, amending the zoning map for the property located at 6560 South, 130 West, Murray City, Utah, from R-1-A8 low-density single-family to R-2-10 low-medium-density residential. Applicant JNG Investment LLC, Susan Nixon and Jared Hall will be presenting that. Thank you.
Thank you. As Ms. Cotter stated, this application is from J&G Investments. Jonathan Rudd is the one that submitted the application. The property is located at 6560 South off of 130 West Stubb Street. Current zoning is R18 residential single family, 8,000 square foot minimum lot size. The request is to change the zoning to R210. A few months ago, the council adopted a text amendment to the R210 zone that allowed twin homes as a permitted use. The applicant for that proposal is the same applicant as the one tonight. So the intent for this property, if the zoning were to be changed, is to have twin homes. Property, as you can see, is vacant off of 130 West. Fayette Avenue is a public road with public right-of-way, 49-foot right-of-way. And this is a picture of the property, vacant. These were photos taken earlier in the summertime. Yeah, we all remember summer, a long time ago. There are very many similarities between the R18 and the R210. And here is just a diagram of showing the similarities and the differences. The lot size for R18, which is the existing zoning, has a 8,000 square foot minimum requirement per lot. R210 would be a 10,000 square foot minimum, 5,000 per each dwelling. And structure height is the same at 35 feet. Front and rear setbacks are the same of 25 feet. There is a slight difference on the side setbacks. The R18 has a total of 20 feet with 8-foot minimum, and the R210 is a total of 18 feet with 8-foot minimum, so 2 feet different. Corner side yard is still 20 feet, and the parking requirements for dwellings is 2 off-street parking per unit. The R18 and R210 are very similar as far as the uses that are allowed. The similar permitted uses: single-family dwellings, residential facility for persons with disabilities, residential facility for elderly persons, detached, charter schools, public schools, churches, and playgrounds. Bottom line is the difference with the R210 and R18 are that the R210 does allow for 2 family dwellings, either a duplex or a twin home. Duplex is typically owned by one person and is rented. Twin homes are individually owned, owner occupied, and also retirement homes, independent living or congregate care. Our future land use map calls for this area to be residential low density, as shown on our map. And this surrounding area is very similar, also residential low density. The general plan has a designation, while the zonings that correspond with the low density residential are, as you can see, the A1, R112, R110, R18, R16, and R210. The R210 existing, there's only one property in the city that has the R210, and that's on the east side on Jeremy Drive, which is off of Highland Drive and about 6100 South. So the reason that zoning, that there's not a lot of areas is really because of this, the difference that did not allow the twin homes, which was recently changed. So we as staff feel that this will become a more in-demand zone now that we have the twin homes as it allowed. A year ago, the City Council adopted the Fashion Place West Small Area Plan, which is basically from 6100 South down to 6790 South or Leicester Avenue, and from properties that front on State Street to the railroad tracks on the west. This particular property we're talking about tonight is located within area number 1, sub-area number 1, which is established residential neighborhoods. And I'm going to read a section of the Fashion Place West a comment that is in the Fashion Place West that describes what that plan is about, basically. And it is the city's effort to plan for the natural transition of the area over the next 20 years and to help to guide development toward a mix of land uses and building designs that improve the pedestrian experience, overall connectivity, provide a mix of housing types, all while protecting established single-family neighborhoods within the study area, which is, again, from 6100 South down to Leicester Avenue. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 6th of 2022. We sent out notices to all the residents within 300 feet, which was a total of 61 homeowners and the affected entities. We had a hearing on January 6th, and you all have copies of the minutes of that meeting in your packet. The Planning Commission voted 3-2 to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. The findings for this proposal are, as you can see, listed 1 through 4. The general plan does allow for flexibility in implementation and execution of the goals and policies based on individual circumstances. The requested zone change has been carefully considered based on the characteristics of the site and surrounding area and the policies and objectives of the 2017 Murray City General Plan and the Fashion Place West Small Area Plan. The proposed zone map amendment from R18 to R210 is supported by our general plan and the future land use map. And again, the Planning Commission voted 3-2 to forward a positive recommendation. And staff is recommending City Council review this and approve the request for the R210 zone map amendment for the property address 6560 South, 130 West. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is the sponsor here?
Yeah, I believe so.
Is the sponsor here tonight? Oh, okay. Well, I was reading over, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but I was just reading over some of these comments that you made, and they were very interesting and eye-opening when you were talking to the Planning Commission. And one of them was that you made I can assure you, if you had walked into the duplex that was attached to this, you would be astounded at what people were living in, but no owner would live in that, but would allow someone who is renting to live in that and take advantage of. We are changing a trend of cities where that happens, and Murray is in extreme need of this, especially in this area. We want to get going on this. It isn't good to leave vacant lot. Both need to be determined on their own merits, but we can make a commitment and guarantee of the city that we are going to build twin homes. There is a need here for twin homes, which are in this area. Do you still stand by those comments that you made during the Planning Commission? Yes.
Hi, my name's John Rudd. I'm the one that attended that and made those comments. I do.
And
I hope.
Can I have your address also?
Yes. My address is 14899 South Blue Springs Cove,
Okay.
Bluffdale, Utah. I grew up and went to Hillcrest High School, close to here in Midvale. I'm very familiar with Murray City. I'm from the general area around here. I'm very familiar with this area and the duplex and the home that were around there. I hope I'm not walking into a hornet's nest, but in the sense of answering, I think I understand the question. And yes, I was in context referencing there. Miss Nixon had put up pictures of twin homes in neighboring cities, and they're very beautiful. They're a little bit larger. They're not, as you know, they're owner occupied instead of a rental property. And I was talking about how it's important that we provide this type of housing. These are big. They're homes. They're not apartments, but they're a little bit more affordable. But they allow for an owner occupied resident of Murray to be there instead of a rental scenario, to where I think that we need to provide that affordable housing, but that people can take advantage of this and have those living opportunities for owner occupation. And that's what I was talking about. Hopefully it came across correctly. But we had just looked at beautiful pictures of different cities. And so I wanted to talk about that with the Planning Commission. So, yeah.
Thank you.
But I'm happy to answer any questions. That is our intent. That is what we will do for twin homes. So yeah, which if anyone has any question what they are, they're just a natural home, but they have a shared firewall. So they're actually a single family residence. They're not multifamily. That's why they're low density. And many of the cities, some of them have been adopting them for many years. When you look at them, many people just think they're not they don't have a shared wall, but in essence they do, to fit for the size that is needed for them. But that's it. It's a single family residence, owner occupied. So,
do we have any public comments on this?
Can I make a comment
Yeah, go ahead.
first?
Sorry.
What's being considered tonight is the change of zoning, not the development.
correct.
You could decide you want to develop something else as long as it's within that zoning. So just to let you know that we are considering the zoning, not the development.
I'm aware of that. I just figured I should put my integrity out there for the public. I don't know. My understanding is I cannot agree by contract. I'd be willing to do that in a development agreement, but that's not what's on the table. I just am our purpose. We pushed for the text amendment that Ms. Nixon referenced for the twin homes to be done, and then to have this changed for that purpose. So hopefully that shows our intent for twin homes to be built here. We were the party that had sponsored that to go before Murray City that was already approved for twin home designations here, and that's why. So we don't own any other land in this area to do that too, so that's why that was the case. Hopefully that makes sense.
Where else have you developed, has your company developed in the Salt Lake Valley?
Oh, in many areas. Our company has 40 properties right now, but they're single family residences. We don't, right now, we are, to my knowledge, there are no multifamily or anything of that nature. We want to build homes and owner occupied residences. So, yeah. Maybe a little different than what you hear. Most people are trying to do multifamily. That's great, and there's a need for rental. If you read the minutes, I talked about how I rented for a period of time in my life. We all need it to be able to afford housing, but we're the next step after that. We're for owner-occupied residences. That's what we're trying to develop. So,
And I really like that idea because we can invest our money. Even my husband and I could sell our home and come and buy one of your twin homes because we're reinvesting our money, but we're living in something smaller and not as huge. So
that's right.
So is there any other comments from the council? Rosalba?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll turn it over to the public if we have any public comments. Those wishing to comment on the matter under consideration this evening.
Can I just say I was providing an estimated amount more? There may be more than 40 homes. I'm just estimating a number on the spot. Okay.
Okay, if there's anyone commenting on this tonight. Okay. Then we will go on to closing the public hearing. Or is there any questions and actions by the council?
I just wanted to say that this seems like a really appropriate way to increase housing availability and in line with the Fashion Place West area plan.
Anybody else? Rosalba? Okay.
No, I will add that, we did just recently update our zone from duplexes and to twin homes. And we just need to be conscious that, the developer can and, has under that code and zoning, they could either do either one. And we're just approving the zone versus the actual project.
Yep.
For now.
Okay, I will now
So
close.
thank you, Pam.
Okay. I will now close the public hearing for this item. I will entertain a motion on this ordinance of relating to the land use amending the zoning map for the property located at 6560 South 130 West, Murray City, Utah, from R18 low density single family to R210 low medium density residential. Do I have a council member to?
Gary and I are just staring at each other, playing chicken over this. We both thought the other was going to do it. I will make a motion that we approve an ordinance relating to land use, amending the zoning map for the property located at 6560 South, 130 West, Murray City, Utah, from R18 low density single family to R210 low medium density residential.
I second.
Okay. Councilmember Cat has moved and Councilmember Gary has seconded to approve the ordinance relating to land use amending the zoning map for the property located at 6560 South 130 West Murray City, Utah, from R18 low density single family to R210 low medium density residential. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, none. Brooke, would you please call for a roll? Thank you.
Aye.
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 Aye. So this ordinance has passed. Thank you. Thank you. And good luck with your project. And it will be exciting to see what happens next. Okay, our next public hearing is number 2. It is consider an ordinance permanently closing, vacating a portion of an alleyway at 4860 South Poplar Street, Murray City, Utah, Murray City, Salt Lake County, State of Utah. Trey Stokes is here.
Thank you.
Hey there.
Hi. Murray City Public Works Department is requesting that the City Council consider an ordinance approving an ordinance that closes and vacates an old alleyway on the new City Hall site located at 4860 South Poplar Street. This is an alleyway that bisects the new City Hall site. The alleyway is no longer being used for access or utilities and needs to be vacated to allow us to move forward with a plat that consolidates all of the parcels that make up the City Hall site. So with that, are there any questions or concerns that I can address?
I just have a point of clarification. Can we take both 2 and 3 together? They have to go separately. Okay.
I'm just going to sound like a broken record.
I have nothing. Okay, so we will now open the public hearing for public comment. Do we have anyone here to make a comment on this item? None? Okay.
Would you like a motion?
Yep, I sure do. I was just going to say that.
All right.
I need to close the public hearing.
You haven't done that yet. Sorry.
No. Okay, I need to end the public hearing at this time. That's it. So,
Close it.
yep, done. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion on the ordinance of the closing of vacant portion of an alleyway at 4860 South Poplar Street, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah. Do I have a council member?
I would like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance permanently closing and vacating a portion of an alleyway at 4860 South Poplar Street, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah.
I second.
Okay, Councilmember Diane has moved and Councilmember Gary has seconded to approve the ordinance permanently closing and vacating a portion of an alleyway at 4860 South Poplar Street, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah. Is there any discussion on this motion?
No.
Okay, Brooke, would you please do a call? Roll.
Aye.
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 Aye. So it looks like this ordinance has passed. Thank you. So we are number 3. It is an ordinance permanently closing and vacating an alleyway at First East, 4800 South, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah. Trey Stokes. Welcome back.
Thank you. That was quick.
I was going to say welcome back, Cotter.
The Murray City Public Works Department is requesting, again, that the City Council consider approving an ordinance that closes and vacates an old alleyway on the new City Hall site. And this one's located at 1 East, 4800 South. The alleyway is no longer being used for access or utilities. With the construction of the new City Hall site, the alleyway sits right where the building is located. This is needed to allow us to consolidate the 18 or 20 parcels that make up the site. So, any questions or concerns?
I don't. Okay. Is there any actions? Okay. All right. So I will now close the public hearing. Oh, wait. We're opening the public hearing. Sorry. Is there any comments tonight on this ordinance? And there is none. Okay. Council, do you have any questions? None? Okay. I will now close the public hearing from this item. This item is an ordinance permanently closing and vacating an alleyway at First East, 4800 South, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah. I will now entertain a motion for this ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance permanently closing and vacating an alleyway at First East, 4800 South, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councilmember Gary has moved and Councilmember Cat has seconded to approve the ordinance permanently closing and vacating an alleyway at First East, 4800 South, Murray City, Salt Lake County, state of Utah. Is there any discussion on this motion?
No.
No.
Okay, Brooke, would you please call for a vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Brooke. This ordinance has passed. So we are now on considering an ordinance related to the Murray City Center District repeal of 2011 design review guidelines and enactment of new design review guidelines. And we have Zach Smallwood and Jared Hall presenting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hello again. Hope you all are doing well.
We are.
Good. So this, like you had stated, is a request from the Murray City Community and Economic Development Department to repeal and replace the existing design guidelines in the MCCD zoning district. As you're aware, it encompasses about, I believe, 100 acres or so in the center of town. It's supposed to, the MCCD is, well, here, this is the purpose. So the Murray City Center District is envisioned as the commercial civic and cultural center of the community and is intended to enhance physical, social, and economic connections by redeveloping downtown Murray City, resulting in a richer, more vibrant cultural environment. The 2017 Murray City General Plan suggests that the city center should include development which is pedestrian oriented with a strong emphasis on the urban design and streetscape. So the regulations in the ordinance layout are intended to promote that mixed use development and encourage that pedestrian oriented design. So what we have currently from the previous MCCD zone was that the Murray City Council shall adopt the Murray City Center District design guidelines, and that property located within the MCCD shall be developed in conformance with the provisions set forth in those guidelines. That's been kind of a point of where we have not traditionally done that through like strict conformance to that. It was, they were used as design guidelines. So when the language from the most recently adopted Murray City Center zone, it was reflected as to what true design guidelines are. So what are design guidelines? They are a set of discretionary statements, whereas development standards are the things that are laid out in the code specifically. So that would relate to height, setback, and uses, those types of things in the zone. Design guidelines allows for staff to work with the technical aspect, like architects and designers, and work with them to push a project, make those people think of the project a little bit more than just slapping two things of concrete and five floors of wood and making it, an apartment complex. So we design guidelines are there to help us encourage that development to do something greater. So design guidelines are supposed to work as smaller statements, design intent, because what we don't want to do necessarily is dictate the architecture of a building, like exactly how it's supposed to look down to the nitty gritty, but push towards having more of a conversation and have the designers think about the ordinance and what the feel of the district is supposed to be. Kind of went over this a little bit, but what development standards are so height, setback, density, things like that. So the Murray City General Plan specifically calls out in initiative number 1 that the City Center District, there's a whole chapter in the general plan that discusses how we should be moving forward. That is what staff used as well with the public engagement side that was done with the general plan to craft these new design guidelines. Like I kind of mentioned in the committee of the whole, I cut up little pieces of paper and went through and picked out actual design words that created a sense of feeling or what I could have gleaned from that process in the general plan. Also, you'll notice that in the next couple slides, we have shared values, and those are specifically related to these key initiatives, specifically like linking centers and districts to the surrounding context, a city geared toward multimodality, and livable, vibrant neighborhoods. So like I said, there are 5 shared values in the proposed new guidelines, with them being authentic, active, inclusive, multimodal, and connected. And those specifically relate back to that general plan, because we do want the downtown connected to the rest of the city. We want it to feel integrated in there. And when somebody is able to walk from their place of residence into downtown, it should be an enjoyable experience. And those guidelines will help us push for that going forward. Multimodal, we do believe in putting the cyclist and the pedestrian at an equal playing field as a vehicle. So we want those to operate all on the same playing field. I think that's very important. Active, we believe that the MCCD should be active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what keeps something active, vibrant, and moving. So we encourage that activity there. So moving on from that, so it'll actually be 2 years now. In April of 2020, we started working on creating new guidelines, modeling them after off of other design guidelines that have been adopted in various other cities. And we started seeing a trend that they were very basic, one page explanations of the guideline. So value supported, linking back to the general plan, the issue being addressed, and then recommendations that could be incorporated to address the issue or guideline. So process, all major alterations, and this is the process for the MCCD zone. So when you apply for a design review approval, you have to obtain a pre-application conference with the planning division that just meets with us and kind of discusses what the rules are. We typically give them or at least direct them to where they can find the design guidelines currently so that they can start to work on that as they come up with new opportunities or for a project. Then we would receive a design review application, and that would be reviewed by the MCCD review committee first, and then they make a recommendation to the planning commission, who then provides public comment and makes the final decision as the land use authority. So standards of review, the planning commission is to determine the following before giving the design review approval to a project. Has to conform with the general plan, generally conform with the specific area plan, conform to the requirements of the applicable sections of the land use ordinance. So that would be the MCCD zone, for example, and does not jeopardize the health, safety, or welfare of the public. Lastly, this is where we're able to use the design guidelines to a degree. It's kind of like, it's not teeth, but it's kind of like gumming. So we can just gum at them a little bit. So the project is in harmony with the purpose of the MCCD zone. And forget that already. Yeah, so there you go. So we can at least push that. And if there's something we genuinely don't like, we can push back and say, you're not meeting that kind of thing. So there you go. I got a laugh. That's the first time I've gotten a laugh. So that's great.
Yeah, it's just a quiet laugh.
All right. So now we'll get into the specific design guidelines themselves. They were broken up into 4 different categories. First one being district-wide with 3 overarching guidelines: walkability, activity, and sustainability. I'll kind of zone in on the sustainability section. The code was changed that no third-party certifications are required, but they are encouraged. There were some elements that I believe for public buildings or something, I don't remember, GL mentioned it in the committee of the whole, that required us to be a certain level of LEED for public buildings. And we removed that, but encouraged other people to provide different, because there's a bunch of different types of third-party certifications. There's the Living Building Institute that issues buildings or certificates for sustainability, things like that. And the city may provide incentives for achieving third-party certifications that would be based on post-performance outcomes and negotiated for a project through development agreements. And that's actually in the code. I'm sorry, that's specifically in the code. That's not the design guideline. The design guideline specifically calls out, to specifically look at, encourage recycling organic material, organic matter, provide systems that reduce water. So providing the engineering department already requires a low impact development. But if we can, push that even further and say, have some sort of like green roof or something on your property, that helps to meet that as a sustainability guideline. Okay, moving on to the next section, which are public spaces and streetscape. So the streetscape really mentions street trees. Okay, whoa, that just popped up out of nowhere. Street trees, broad sidewalks with weather protected seating. You guys aren't seeing this, but a folder keeps popping up, so don't mind me. Okay. Consideration of wayfinding signage, like I mentioned in Committee of the Whole during our Sugar House walk, I pointed that out specifically, that Sugar House does have specific wayfinding across all of Salt Lake City. They have a lot of wayfinding for pedestrians, and I think that's important as the downtown does continue to develop, that people are able to get around and be able to orient themselves. So next would be a development site. So this is not specific to the building, but to say like a parcel, like the City Hall site or something like that. You have the varying different types of open space guidelines there. I kind of mentioned this in the Committee of the Whole again. Sorry, I keep beating a dead horse. But in your bottom right-hand picture, that was a gated off public space. And that was something that really irked me. And that was before I even started writing the design guidelines. I thought that was silly. And having opportunities for us to push back to developers and say, no, you really shouldn't be closing that off to the public. It should be open and used by all. I think that's very important. Provide seating throughout sites. We require it as part of the code to require benches on the public streets, but there's nothing that states that they have to provide benches and seating areas in any of their private spaces or anything like that. So that provides us an opportunity to do that. Also in this area, in this same section of the design guidelines, it talks about parking, locating bike racks close to building entrances. I found that actually, you can see that at our current fire station. I don't remember the number of it. The new one that's in the MCCD. 83. Thank you. Oh, 81. It's 80 something. So, So their bike rack is actually located immediately adjacent to their front door, which is really great. The designers didn't have to put it there. They could have put it next to their bays that they leave, that they have fire trucks leaving out of. I'm sure there's probably a fire code that says you can't do that, but that's just an example. And then let's see. So we'll move on to the architectural section. Here, these are even more aspirational, design for potential. So this encourages developers to provide that increased height on the ground floor levels so that in the future, those could be converted over to ground floor uses. If you'll remember back during the moratorium, the MCCD was changed so that, say like on Center Street, for example, you don't have to provide that ground floor commercial. It's only on main thoroughfares pretty much. And so if we do still ask for a developer to come forward and provide that extra height, later on they can come back and say, oh, well, we're starting to see a need for this commercial space. So we're gonna, we'd like to convert it over there. And we'd be able to support that a little bit easier. Now, everyone's favorite, fenestration and porosity. So this speaks specifically to gaps in the building to allow people to walk through. During our Sugar House walk, there were lots of little ways that you could get in and out of little hidden courtyards. There was the Hidden Hollow Park, I think is what it was called, that you wouldn't see from a vehicle easily anyway. You actually have to get out of your car to see that. And then the open plaza that was adjacent to it as well. And then fenestration is just being able to see inside a building and having the people inside the building be able to see out. That provides a level of safety to people that are walking by. People that are in the building can see. It provides those eyes on the street. And that provides, I'm just going in circles, a level of safety there. So, findings. So the proposed guidelines have been considered based on previous planning efforts within the downtown, including the general plan. We feel that the proposed amendment is necessary to comply with section 17.170.020 of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance. That's where it specifically states the design guidelines shall be consulted. We believe the proposed guidelines are consistent with the goals and initiatives of the 2017 Murray City General Plan. And the proposed amendment will provide the city and development community clear guidelines for development in the downtown. And the Planning Commission held a public hearing in November 19th, 2020, and voted to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. So with that, staff and the Planning Commission are recommending that the City Council hold a public hearing and approve the text amendment to repeal and replace the MCCD design guidelines. Now I am more than happy to answer any and all questions.
Do we have any members of the council for comments or anything for Zach or Jared? Yes. Diane.
I have a couple of questions. And I'm wondering, are historical values, is this an appropriate forum for to recommend that historical values are considered?
Could you, I guess I'm not clear on what the question is, but Jared seems to, so I will let.
Well, that doesn't make me nervous at all. I think the short
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think I do. Is this the appropriate place where, and in this context, is this where we would want to talk about historic values being part of development, using the same kind of the guidelines as opposed to just the code? Because we do have historic references in the code itself, in the ordinance itself.
Right.
They talk about incentivizing historic preservation, et cetera. They're more incentivizing rather than deterring.
Yes.
And the short answer is yes. We could have things written into the design guidelines that deal with that in the same way, that support the ideas that we've written into code, that support them without having that gum them rather than have teeth on them. To quote that. It's not an inappropriate place for it. They're not in this right now in this set of guidelines, but they could be added. They could be added in the future. It's nothing that keeps us from making a change to that and adding a value. It would just be if Zach was to zip back through the way that they're set up, it would be easy enough to insert something like that, but we'd want to get a sense for what that language ought to be. Right now, we don't really have that.
But it would not be a difficult thing to have.
Not be difficult amendment at all. We just want to get context for what we wanted to see in there as a group, as a city, because there's a lot of different public bodies and public citizens and everybody feeding into that. So we'd want to get a clear sense of what they wanted before we tried to insert them. But yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. This is also really getting into the weeds.
That's okay, please.
And, I think it's good for us, and we've gone over this, and we, walked Sugar House and as well as Holiday, and we've looked at a lot of different ideas, and so I really appreciate that. I think you guys have worked hard to really have us understand what this is. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on the process and the difference between this and the zone. So just to make sure that we clarify that.
Yeah, that's really important. That this is not affecting the zone at all. The zoning is its own thing. It stands alone, and is the requirements for anybody to come forward. These are allowing us to, like I said, kind of nudge developers or people that want to make changes to their buildings or something to think of the greater district instead of their site specifically. because that's what we're all trying to do, is create an inclusive downtown, a cohesive downtown that works together. And so we need the development community and people that own property down there to realize that it's not just about their property, it's about the entire district.
And if they don't adhere to these, what happens?
We can write a mean section in the staff report. Okay, hold on one second.
Can I take that for 1 second? So, go to the next one. Sorry, standards of review. Because these are part of the standards of review for that MCCD zone. They are a part of it, but they're not the how tall, and they're not the how many units, and they're not the how much parking is required. All of those things are codified in the zone itself, right? So when we do that staff report Zach's talking about, that last item, and I can't read it up close with the glasses, and I can't read it far away with the glasses. I'm in between all of the lens technology. Did you read it?
The project is in harmony with the purpose of the MCCD zone and adheres to the principles of the design guide.
Right. So the important part in that statement, I didn't have the microphone on him, so sorry. The important part of that being the adheres to the principles of the design guidelines. So we do have just that little bit of oomph to say, look, if you have met your requirements for height and you've met your requirements for parking and you're not more dense than you're allowed, but you have completely ignored our standards for, we can't look at it and say that you worried about multimodality. We can't look at it and objectively say you considered that this was connected. You had opportunities to connect to the greater downtown and you ignored them. We can send you back to the drawing board. And we would do that. We would push to do all those things as staff. Hopefully you never see that, or the Planning Commission doesn't see that. We've done all that work beforehand, arguing with them in concept phases. So we'll utilize it more as staff, and then we'll tell you what we did with them and how we pushed them without embarrassing them, of course, in front of you, because some of those developer egos are very fragile. There's no developers in the room anymore, right? They're all gone. So we'd be careful with that, but we work with them a lot before it ever gets to the stage that it's in the public eye. But that's where we use them, is where we can say it's supposed to adhere to these principles. So there's that very slight connection, but like Zach said, the really important stuff is all codified. It has to be. Right. We can't depend on design guidelines for things like the density or the parking or the height. So
in order to change that, we have to change the zone.
You change the zone to change those things. These guidelines, whatever guidelines you have in place, the existing ones that are in place don't impact that. The proposed ones we have don't impact that kind of thing. They have to do more with these broader principles that we're talking about, porosity and fenestration and things like that. Some of those things are codified to a certain degree too, like the fenestration. Zach's got the picture of that, those clear windows on that main floor. Mm-hmm. We want to see how they do that and how they address that and make sure that they address it well. But we've also codified a little bit of that. In the MCCD zone, your ground floor windows are not allowed to be opaque. So there's that one big tooth that says you can't have black windows on the main floor. But then also, if you don't have enough windows on the main floor, we might hit you with the fenestration reference here and say, we really want to see more windows. If you want us to strongly support this to the Planning Commission, you're going to want to give us more fenestration on that ground floor. So that's how it gets used. Does that make sense, kind of? I'll be quiet now.
Rosalba?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Because we haven't really gone into questions on a lot of this, is from what I understand from the previous, why we killed it was to have more public input in terms of the guidelines. I just want to go over some of the questions that I had originally written down from the first time of when it was reviewed through the Planning Commission on October 20th and passed. So if you can bear with me, well, let me start with this. When we did the moratorium, your staff did the mixed use code, correct?
Yeah, it was the mixed use code and the MCCD and the TOD zones.
Okay, so when we did the mixed use code, how does that differ from this and that? How does MCCD guidelines differ from those guidelines to this? Because these guidelines seem a little bit more vague.
So, to put it pretty bluntly, the mixed use code does not have guidelines. The TOD has.
Sorry, you're right.
The TOD does have some guidelines, but those are adopted more as standards, and they are specifically called kind of design standards, and those are to outline like bench material. There's a certain logo you have to use on the benches, on the street lights, and those things. So those are codified as design standards, not design guidelines.
Okay. And my next question is, how does a traffic study play into the MCCD guidelines? Is there, or is that with the zone?
It wouldn't come into the design guidelines. That's codified in the zone. If there is like a master site plan requirement, I think that there can be. I think that was addressed during the moratorium, that if there's a master site plan approval required, then a traffic study would be required. However, these proposed design guidelines do not address specific standards. So we're not evaluating like the parking counts or the traffic generation in the design guidelines. That would be handled through through us reviewing it through the actual ordinance in the code.
Okay. And then I have two more questions.
Sure.
And what has been the process, or what is traditionally the process for community input for guidelines?
That's a great question. I can't really answer that because I was not here during the 2011 when this was all changed from the DHOD to the MCCD. I was not part of that. I don't know what kind of public input was put in to the previous design guidelines. Do you have any? Okay, Jared doesn't have any background on that either.
Or even what's the public input on these design guidelines? And in your career, is that something that happens traditionally, or are you aware of?
Jared wants to talk, so hold on one sec.
I was going to say, these are the only design guidelines in Zach's career. They're the only ones in his life. He's design guideline monogamous, and this is in my career so far. I have not had the opportunity to adopt a lot of design guidelines, which is part of the reason that I love working in Murray so much. I haven't been in places that needed this kind of work most times. I did write design guidelines in South Salt Lake, but I can't recall the public process being beyond just our public process, public hearings, several of them at the Planning Commission, City Council level. I don't think that I could speak definitively to all other cities and how they do things, but I think you'd find, honestly, just the full gamut of possibilities. There are cities that do it just with public hearings that are required, and there are cities that would hold design charrettes and et cetera, and it might be different every time as well. It might be different in every instance. So I think it just depends on what level of public involvement you feel is necessary to achieve the goal that you have.
Also,
okay.
Jared is correct in that I am design guidelines monogamous, but it is, I will say something similar. I won't go down this rabbit hole too far, but there's a thing called a form-based code. And that, when I was on the Midvale Planning Commission, that was adopted for their Main Street / historic downtown area. And that didn't have any extra public engagement outside of the coming to the Planning Commission. There were some changes. We had a few workshops through the Planning Commission to go through that I think almost 300-page document to make sure everything was meeting correctly, but there was no additional public comment outside of the public hearing portion, and obviously the City Council when they adopted it as well. That's the only thing that's design-ish related that I could really speak to outside of that.
And just kind of touch base on that with the new, legislative rules and laws that are about to come on bestowed onto us in the next year or so. One of the things that the representatives kind of kept encouraging, and even the governor, was that we should bring the community forward and how and what in our communities, and so they can determine what it looks like, so we can base our development on our values, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know where this is going to go tonight, but with that said, how do you, if we had to come back to the table and look at this and kind of, get community on board, because this area is something that it's not only in my district, but it's something that can benefit all of Murray citizens. And there is a need or a want to be able to have a voice in that. Would it be out of the realm on your guys' part to say, look, we're going to go back and revisit this and maybe such and such time frame and kind of work out the details before we bring this forward? Would that hurt in moving forward with or without that? Or what's your guys' professional opinion on that?
So I will get into it just a little bit and state that we are 100% always willing to look at changes to the code. I'm sorry, not to the code, but to design guidelines, to anything at the city council, the planning commission, the mayor's office, whatever they want changed. We serve, our role is to serve the public. That's pretty much what we do. We are public servants, and we work with the mayor's office and the city council to make sure that that's done. We never are upset about changes to things. That's very important. And I think, you could come back tomorrow and say, I want this, and this changed, say like you adopted tonight, but you want this, and this changed. We can definitely, have that discussion and figure it out. I don't think you would find that we're off mark or off base from a lot of what you say. Just as a personal note, when I applied for the associate planner job here in Murray, I wasn't sure I wanted the position to work in Murray. It was because of the MCCD that I took the position. So I'm very invested. I love that zone. I think it's the best thing that could be happening in Murray. So we do want to make sure that this is a place for all of Murray to come together. And so the long and short of it is, we're more than happy to make changes. This should not be a document that is, I was going to try to say a big word. I can't say big words. That is untouchable. It's something that should be a living document that could be continued to be evolved and changed over time. And I believe, I think this does a better job at getting to those goals better than the 2011 existing design guidelines gets to the goals that I believe the council and the community wants to see it in the future.
Okay, can we hear from any other councils?
I just have one more comment.
Sorry, I had one last question before, and this is it. This is my last question. The biggest concern that I've had from citizens is once we move to adopt these new guidelines, it removes any conversation other than, markers, historical markers here and there, of any historical reference. How do you, other than like congregating again, how do you foresee that to play out in the future?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the historical marker is actually laid out in code. It's not specifically stated in the design guidelines. The design guidelines doesn't speak to exactly what historical markers or what have you should be implemented. the code specifically lays out that that if a historical building was to be demolished, then a plaque or something should be erected in place of that. And I know we as staff are more than happy to have the discussion about changes to the zone anytime that you guys would like, and we can readdress that as well.
Are you done, Rosalba?
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Okay, great. Thank you. My concern is that if we don't go forward on this, we keep getting stuck. And this is a dynamic living document, and we can change it. I have my issue. I think that historical values should be considered, and I think that should be part of it. We can change that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long we can continue with the 2011. If it doesn't support the code and or the zoning. So anyway, that's my concern, and I think at some point we need to trust you guys to do your job. I mean, we can stay in the weeds forever, but you know, I don't know what kind of bugs are in there. And, it's just anyway.
There's a lot.
So I think at some point we need to go on with the understanding that there are changes, and that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
So I have a couple of thoughts here. So guideline 10 does talk about the markers, the historical markers. At least that's what I'm reading in here.
Okay.
But under the value of authentic, I think as you were asking for ideas or where we could, I think it specifically calls out, and they're not, Murray City is pursuing the development of a true functioning and authentic downtown neighborhood, not a historic replication of another time. I wonder if that is an area where we could possibly pull that piece out and maybe insert something around that, maybe where we tie the historical Murray with current Murray or something like that. So maybe that would be just a thought as I looked through authentic. The other thing, so we talked, and I need GL's help on this, but we talked a lot about code and how we have to adhere to what's in the code. Guidelines, how, I know he said gumming, not teeth, but let's say, for example, that we, as the council, ask for a resolution to come forward about where, similar to the mixed use zones, we want to approve the plan. If the plan ultimately we don't feel adheres to the guidelines, what is that? Is that sufficient when there's guidelines in place? Or again, are we going to be held strictly to the code?
So if you saw the standards that are used to approve, there is some input in terms of the guidelines. What you're asking was I can't answer that question unless I see something in front of me.
Okay.
In terms of what the principles are that we're saying they're not adhering to.
Okay.
So it's general. Something that is familiar with the planners. This is what they deal with all the time.
Right.
But as far as being able to say every single one had to be adhered to, I don't think we could support that.
Okay. So I guess, is there a way for us to ensure that if we want to be the site approvers, that comes back as a code change? Can we get that somehow drafted up, or
no? So
not tonight? It would have to be.
You would not approve this.
But we can change the code, can't we?
You can't change that. It's administrative versus legislative. Let me back up for a second. If you're talking about changing the design guidelines, yes, that's what you would do. If you're talking about a specific project and the design guidelines, that's not in your authority.
So what about the way that mixed use and how they have, so they come before us for the zone change, and then they go back to the commission, they get all the plans together, but then I believe Jared calls it the site plan agreement, comes before the council. In MCCD, that doesn't happen.
That's correct.
Is there a way to make that happen?
Not under these design guidelines, no.
Can I jump in 1 sec? It would happen in the MCC in this zone. Master site plan would be in this zone if it's a larger project, 3 acres and above. But again, like GL said, the design guide, the design guidelines don't really play into that, other than that they have to be adhered to in that master site.
And I'm maybe more just talking about MCCD in general. Is there a way to put MCCD in the same bucket with the mixed use zones or not? As far as needing the master site plan, regardless of size, I believe, to come back before the council.
That could be that would be code writing. We just didn't.
Okay.
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't like it, but it can be.
Only two, just for clarification, only the two newest of the zones that are written more for the more suburban, not the more suburban, the less urban parts of the city, the less transit oriented parts of the city. Only those two have the master site plan agreement, no matter what.
Okay.
The others, the MCMU that's around Central Station and the downtown zone, they only have it when they're 3 acres and greater.
I just asked because I think there's concern about what comes out of this and how it's going to make downtown look. So if we change the zone, we have to adhere to what's in the code.
So if you look at the mixed use, though, what Jared's talking about is your decision there really is to ensure that they're complying with what you've already put in the code.
Okay.
And that if there is horizontal mixed use, that commercial gets built.
Okay.
This is completely different, really.
Okay. Just trying to understand it all.
Yeah.
Kat?
I'll speak after a public comment if you're ready to open up the public hearing.
Well, I just have one comment. As you can see, I have many tabs, but I'm not going to go through the many tabs, as you guys know. You know how we're having the public survey? Can we hold off and hear from the public on this from the survey and then go back and do the changes? Or is it?
It just depends on what you
that's entirely up to the RDA, and as you guys go forward with crafting that survey, if I remember correctly, currently you're doing it just for block 1. These would apply more.
Right, it's only from that block. Yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
These would apply to more than just block 1.
Right, exactly. Okay. 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 So we will now open the public hearing. If there's anyone to make a comment on this, please hand, those wishing to comment on the matter under consideration this evening are asked to complete the public hearing comment form. Please hand that form to Jennifer. If you do not wish to speak to the matter but would like to enter written comment into the record, please complete the form entertaining your comments and indicate that you do not wish to comment and your comments are limited to 3 minutes. When you're at the microphone, please state your name and address for the record and please be brief and try to not restate points made by others. Thank you.
My name is Jeannie Patton. My address is 1419 East Ventry Lane. I have lived in Murray probably 25 years. First in 45th South off of Atwood. So I lived in the old community. I went away for a career and came back and ended up specifically asking to live in Murray because I love the city and how it felt. But I ended up in the redistricted area, which is not Murray as I know it. It may be useful if you'll give me a moment to give you an example of public comment. This really is the heart of my issue here. I live in Woodstock Village. And when you all decided that you wanted to improve the pathway along the canal, we received notification that there would be a public hearing about that. Over 400 people showed up to that hearing. And one step inside that building, you know that train had already left the station. I don't know how much money was spent on what they did in graphics and other things on the wall, but if you've been involved in business at all, you know this sucker is gone. They promised us, multiple people promised us that we would have opportunities to input as this developed. Nothing happened. It went ahead just exactly as they had originally planned. The only concession that we got was that it wasn't blacktopped. So to tell you that there is a frustration level with Murray City in communicating big things is shocking to me because Murray was the little town that I loved. When I came back, I was vastly disappointed in how downtown looked. It had nothing to do with the city. We're car lots and a hospital and Costco. And that's not what people, my neighborhood people, believe should be there. So to say that, yes, there will be people who will come out and give you feedback on this, more to the point, you are driving change management, and surprising people with things that can pop up on social media. By the way, which is the only way I'm here tonight, there's a hearing and this is going to be what's going to be voted on tonight. What I heard tonight was this is a proposal and there's an opportunity for feedback. That's not what went through the social media channels. So I'm going to, my main point here when I came tonight was to talk about the Utah Main Street Program state grant. To give you a little background, the state has given $190,000 to 2 communities this year to support Main Street development. 7 communities already have received this funding: Brigham City, Cedar City, Helper, Mount Pleasant, Ogden, Price, and Tooele. Let me take a breath and take my energy down a tad so I can read this to you. The program demonstrates what's possible when communities unite for a common purpose to support their unique heritage. Go Utah looks forward to supporting priorities and projects that make a difference in honoring what makes each community unique. So I'm asking, begging you, please, whatever happens here going forward, we at least use this to add one more tooth to the gumming operation as it goes on. The other thing that I wanted to pass along as it came up through some social
Sorry,
media.
that was your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You can add that to
Sure, thank you. Hi, my name is Rachel Morrow. I'm going to speak on behalf of the Historic Murray First Foundation, which I am the president of, just so I can have 5 minutes. So we've heard a lot about authenticity, value number 1 in the new Murray City Center guidelines proposal. And I'm wondering what the idea of authenticity is if it's not what we already have, if it's not our historic downtown, which granted does need help, does need revitalization, does not need a tear down in any way, shape, or form. This specifically says that we don't want a historic replication of another time or another common open air mall. So strike Holiday. We have referenced Holiday redevelopment because it fits closer to what we are hoping to do on a better scale here in Murray if we can get a unique downtown visualized. And we're hoping that there would be partnership and collaboration with maybe the Main Street, Utah Main Street program, which has had great successes and examples around Utah of downtown areas that they have worked on and are charming and inviting, and people want to spend time. We certainly don't want Sugar House, and we feel like with last year and the proposal from the Evelyn Company that was put forward, that is closer to what Sugar House is. So no Sugar House, no Holiday, but Holiday is closer. I just to read some prepared comments that I have. I think that I've heard a lot that developers protest that, well, we can't do that. It's too costly. Preservation is too costly. We can't make this happen. But as I mentioned, the Utah Main Street program has helped this to happen in other communities, Brigham City, Lehigh, Morgan. I think they have also done some with Midvale to reference more of a metropolitan Main Street. So those are proof that despite developer protestations, we can do this. And we do think that updates to the MCCD guideline are needed from the 2011 version. We do not think that these updates to the MCCD should be voted on at a rescheduled council meeting immediately after very recent changes just over the last few days to the citizen comment email submission deadlines, concurrently with the caucus on the same night as this rescheduled council meeting. Also, very few Murray citizens are aware that this public hearing is taking place, which kind of doesn't make it a public hearing. Not in the true inclusive sense of the word. Our new administration has expressed their commitment to gathering and utilizing citizen input in the planning of our community going forward. We profoundly appreciate this and would like to suggest that a vote to change these guidelines at this time is more akin to a used car buying experience, high pressure, and with the details to be worked out afterwards. Assurances have been given to concerned citizens that these guideline updates have been in the city's plan since 2020 and that citizens will absolutely be included in making tweaks to the new guidelines once passed by the council. We appreciate this, but we feel far more secure with the idea of waiting until the Y2 analytics survey of citizen input has been conducted and utilized before the council votes new guidelines into the official record. We believe the interests of citizens are more likely to be honored with survey first updates to official guidelines afterwards. And I would just close with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there any other citizen comments? Please come forward. Thank you. Make sure you fill out a form and all that. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Lloyd Jones. I live at 5151 South 600 East. I just wanted to comment on the concern I have regarding, and I do appreciate what Zach and Jared have said and appreciate their consideration of the questions that have been presented. I am concerned a little bit about the flexibility and the elasticity of the guidelines and how they are, like, we can always add something or subtract something. My experience is that doesn't happen. When something is written, it's taken years for us to change that. So I don't think that we're taking into account or have taken into account the full ramifications of the questions that have been asked about, say, historic or things like that. And so I think Gary's questions, I think Rosalba's questions do present that. And I think that the council passing this today and then saying, well, we can always change that. The inertia has already occurred by passing it today. And I think it will be difficult to change it. Why don't we wait just a little bit? Let's incorporate the language that we want to have incorporated in the guidelines, whether that's connected. We've got these authentic, inclusive, multimodal, connected. That's all great. But what do those really mean? And who's interpreting those? Is it Zach and Jared? They're the only ones that can interpret that and relate that to the developers and present that. Is there guidelines for Zach and Jared to be able to put that gumming effect on them? And how strong are those gums? They're not teeth, we know that. So, where is the emphasis going to be based upon whose input? What are Zach and Jared going to be pushing for? And how do we know that's going to happen? So I think at this time, my public comment is to say, hold off a bit. Let's incorporate some of the language. Let's maybe get a little more input. We've put this off for 2 years. We can put it off for another month or two to get the language that we want included in any proposal for the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Please come forward now. Yeah, come ahead. Thank you, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Joe Christensen. Live in the west side of Murray, Hickman Cove. It's the Costello neighborhood that was built just north of.
Can you give us your address?
Yeah, 1184 West Hickman Cove.
Okay, thank you.
And Zach, Jared, thank you for this presentation today. It was super informative, and it allowed us to see what your vision is for the city. I think I would want to ask the council to consider what Pam and many others here have already suggested. What's the urgency on this? Zach, I appreciate your presentation. The one thing that was missing for me, and I think a lot of citizens here, is this amendment. You're proposing to change the 2011 guidelines, but we don't see a clear contrast between what existed in 2011 and what you're presenting for today. And it's hard for the public when we're given notice of a meeting that you're presenting work of 2 years, but we're seeing it for the first time. It's hard for us to know whether or not this is something that should be supported or not. There's really a real lack of information. So Pam, to your point just a moment ago, and to others who have spoke here, I think would be prudent for the council to postpone making an amendment change until the information that has changed, till Zach and Jared can clearly present and contrast those changes to the community as a whole. It would be great to see side by side what proposed changes are being presented. And then I guess my last question, and I'd love to hear from Zach and Jared, and maybe it's just because I'm not in the know, I'm not paying attention to what's happening in the city as well as I should be. And maybe the onus is on me to be more involved in understanding what these changes are that are occurring. But if this is something that's been worked on for a couple of years, and again, I enjoyed your presentation. If it's something that's been worked on for a couple of years, though, how come for most people within the city, we're only hearing about this last night? And maybe you could comment on either those two questions or points that I have right now, or maybe again, Pam, you could just make a motion to postpone voting on this until another council meeting has passed, or until the city can make additional input or see what's truly happening. Anyway, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Yes, come right ahead. Don't be scared. I'm not scared anymore.
I won't be scared. Jen Keegle-Lynn, I live at 331 East Shamrock Drive, and I've been a resident of Murray for 49 years, can't believe that, and a business owner in Murray of a real estate company, actually residential and commercial. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking there's two sides I'm looking at this. From the real estate world, I totally agree with this. Like you could pass it, you could agree with this immediately. I'm in this world every day. I understand it. But on the flip side, as a resident, I'm looking at these 5 values. I absolutely love those. I understand it. I think that residents, whether they're involved or not, they just need to hear more about that. They need to understand everything that's gone into this so that they feel as if they're a part of it, right? I'm looking at this as a resident, a business owner, and, Murray's home, but And like I said, I agree with everything that's been said, but I think that residents just want to have an opportunity to have a little bit of an input and understand all the time that's been put into this. So I don't think maybe you'd have as much pushback if maybe they were a little bit more educated. And again, I'm in this world, so I understand it. But most aren't. Most aren't in the real estate industry every day and understand everything that goes into it. So that's all.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Is there any other comments at all? Okay, so before closing the public hearing, Jared and Zach, would you like to answer Joe Christensen's questions? Did I get your name right, sir? Joe Christian? Okay. Yes. So go ahead and you can answer those questions.
Yeah. So, in planning commission meetings, we typically go through most of what people have commented on. So, I'll touch on Joe's in just a moment, but I do want to touch on everybody else's as well. We are currently looking at the Main Street Development Program. We've received it a couple times through various different sources. So I'm researching that currently. So we can talk about that more at a later time. That's definitely something we're looking at. To Ms. Moreau's questions about authenticity, these guidelines in this code does not call, and I don't mean this offensively at all, but we do not. These guidelines do not say that we should be tearing down anything. That's kind of left up to, at least during the rewrite in 2019, that was kind of left up to private property owners and whether they felt like their buildings continued to be useful in the zone and whether they were able to turn a profit there. But these design guidelines specifically do not call for that. One of my favorite buildings in this valley is the old hospital. It's that green building. I don't know why. I just love it. I love the green brick to it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. In the design guidelines, I did use holiday quite a bit as in photos of the design guidelines as examples of what should be done when we look at the design guidelines and how things are done. So I used, not just Sugar House. I used Holiday. I used the Central 9th area, which is about Main Street and 900 South. If we had more time on our tour, I actually wanted to go there. I felt that was a new upcoming place. So those are the two things I wanted to mention on Ms. Moreau's comments. Addressing Mr. Jones, in the design guidelines themselves, each of those shared values come with statements on what those mean. And I believe Mr. Harakis is close enough. Okay. Kind of read off some of that as part of the authentic. And that's definitely something that I could see us changing as we continue to have conversations. Specifically, because I know that the council does want to have discussions about the MCCD specifically. So that also gets into Mr. Christensen's comments as well, that these will be relooked at and they will be relooked at soon. And so we anticipate that we will have changes to that going forward, and we anticipate more public engagement in that as well. And this is definitely not the first time the public has seen this. I don't mean to, I'm not trying to be abrasive, but the Planning Commission heard them in November of 2020, and notices were sent out for that. The MCCD Design Review Committee at the time held two or three workshop sessions where we actually went through and hashed out some of these guidelines. And then also this was presented to the council in February, I believe, of 21, right before the moratorium. And then again last week at Committee of the Whole. We are very much open and have been willing to discuss the design guidelines with anybody that came to the office that brought it up. We have always had an open door. That's us as the public. We have an open door. And lastly, to address Jen, I didn't get your last name. I apologize. We agree. We do want to do more engagement with the public. We do see that they have felt, that the public has felt not heard in some of these aspects. And that's definitely something we want to move forward with. I know that's a goal of Jared's, that's a goal of mine, that we want to do that moving forward as well. So.
Thank you.
Questions?
Okay. So does any of the council members have questions for Jared or Zach now?
Do you want to close the public hearing first, or?
Oh, yeah. I will now close the public hearing for this item. The chair, go ahead.
Thank you. So first, I just want to say thank you to everyone that came to speak tonight. And I do apologize to those of you that did only first hear of it on social media. I know that can be really triggering to be like, oh my gosh, it's happening, and I'm just seeing it like by chance. I do want to encourage all of you to contact our office. We have an email list, and anyone who's on that email list will be sent every public agenda. So it's a great tool to stay informed. I know I have several residents in my district who have it, and I get a call from them about every 2 weeks, and they go, I'm looking through it and let's chat about it. What does it mean? And it's a really great tool to stay involved. You only have to make one email to get on the list, and then you're on it for good. So I really encourage everyone to do that. It is a great tool. I want to speak to some of the, it feels like it's getting pushed through fast. And on that, I would just like to counter that if we had approved this in November 2020, we might be working on those amendments tonight already on an improvement version. Government moves really slowly, and sometimes that's really good. Part of that's in design. So it has some catches to keep us safe, right? To make sure that things have public comment and have process. But it is important to keep moving forward with that. I want to be clear what the vote is on tonight is not between this version and an imagined better version. That doesn't exist yet. That doesn't mean it won't. I'm really excited about the survey that's been mentioned a few times tonight that's going to help us improve the code. We're going to get a lot of public comments. I think the new administration is very invested in public comment and public outreach, in hearing from the community. We all are. And the great thing is that nothing in government is in stone or forever. We are amending things here every week we meet. Every time we're here, we're changing things that existed. We're making them better, but they have to exist first. We have to get that version in front of us. So I just really want to speak to that. But I think, so what we are voting on is something 11 years old, that whoever wrote it, you were amazing and you nailed it 11 years ago. But we've moved on a lot since then. A lot has changed. And so what we have the opportunity to do tonight is vote on something better. We're not at the end yet. This is not the end of the road. It's not the end of the journey. It's just a stepping stone in that direction. And I think our staff and our employees deserve the most up-to-date tools we have available to them. And so do any potential developers and members of the public. And I think withholding that tool from them is not being good stewards of the city or of the process. So I am very much in favor of moving it forward. I wish we'd done it sooner. I wish we were already a further step along in it, but we are where we are. And I trust our employees, and I want to give them all the tools we have at our disposal. And then I'm so excited to keep working on it through the processes we have laid out. So that's...
Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that came up as people were talking. So under the current guidelines, how are historical buildings addressed? The guidelines?
That's a great question that I can't recall off the top of my head, just because it's been so long since I've actually looked at those.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I skimmed them yesterday, and yeah, I apologize. I don't have a good answer on that.
And then there was mention of holding some public comment before the next council meeting, which would be April 5th. Is that a feasible thing for you to hold a public meeting to get more input?
I don't know. Probably not, because we would need to notice it, especially if there are any public officials there, such as the Planning Commission or the City Council people.
Yep.
That puts a strain on it.
And then the survey was mentioned. When is that expected to go out?
I would say we just barely approved
that's what I'm curious about.
So we voted earlier today, right?
Right.
I get timey-wimey where things.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I'm just curious. Is this months out? Probably.
Can we have Doug Hill explain the timeline on this survey?
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, probably be better to have a representative from Y2 Analytics here to explain it. But as I recall from when she was here a few weeks ago, she said it typically takes 3 or 4 months to be able to get the results back from the survey. So it's not going to be something that's going to happen real soon, but I would expect it would be sometime in the summer that we get it back.
And we do have your commitment on coming back and making tweaks if we do pass this tonight. Is that correct, gentlemen? Okay.
100%.
And how long would that take, and what would that process be? Just a reminder.
It would be the exact same process as any other text amendment. So it would, especially for the MCCD, it would go to the design. Maybe not. There's question on whether it would go to the review committee for text amendments. But it would definitely go to the Planning Commission, have a public hearing there. This is outside of any additional public engagement, mind you, because we do anticipate to have more public discussion on this. But the official process is it will go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing for a recommendation to the City Council. Then it will go to the City Council for Committee of the Whole, and then it will come back at the next meeting for a public hearing. So it would go through the normal process of any text amendment.
So a couple of months?
Definitely. 60. We quote people usually 60 to 90 days when things have to go to the council.
And in this case, I think it's important to note in this case too, that you're talking about a survey coming back, and there needs to be time for you all as a council to have that reported to you and then analyzed and taken apart a little bit. And then you need to kind of work together to formulate what you think ought to be changed or tweaked based on that. There's times in there that are so fluid we couldn't really say it's going to be X amount of time. But Zach's 100% right. Public process wise, once you've decided kind of what direction you want to go based on a survey like that, maybe you want to go in a direction of getting more surveys done to find out more information. We don't know. If you had everything perfectly from that survey, 60, 90 days to get something written up and through the public process.
So it's going to take a while.
It takes time.
Okay.
Rosalba?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for being patient with me. I had already planned coming to DC prior to hang out with my family before our conference, so I really appreciate you guys listening to the sky for me. So one, I do want to touch on a few things. Currently, yes, I do agree with Kat in a sense that, the guidelines are 11 years old and we should look at them. But what I would like is also just to remind everyone, we're already using them. The last 2 years, one of the reasons why I did want to hold off on it was to have public input, because we weren't getting any communication from the previous administration about how the process went about. Any of that, I think I got more information from Zach and Jared tonight that, it went to the committee and they had a workshop and all these other details that we were not allotted or weren't aware of. So we're already currently using them. Developers are already kind of working on them. I'm kind of getting an understanding that Zach's kind of playing already with the current ones, but not officially. I don't, from the questions that was asked about the current guidelines.
I feel like I should jump in, Rosalba, because I don't know if you can see Zach's body language, and there's disagreement with what you're saying.
So, and I apologize, Ms.
And there was a question in regards to what the current guidelines are in the historical district, or historical structures. So if you can help me understand that, then.
Sure. So to touch on your first, and I apologize if I'm not understanding kind of what you had mentioned, but any project that has come through the public process has not been evaluated against the proposed design guidelines. That would be against.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, for sure. That would be pretty much against the law. We're not able to do that. So everything that has come forward has been reviewed against the current instilled guidelines. And again, I can't really speak if I had access to my planning drive, I could get to the historic section of the design guidelines, but I don't have access to that here. And we could have that discussion. But I'm happy to talk about that afterward, after this happens. I'm not in the office tomorrow, but you could definitely call me on Thursday or Friday, and I can go over what those are, and we can definitely have that discussion on whether you want to see something like that be reinstituted in new design guidelines. We would probably have to tweak some of the language in those design guidelines, obviously, but that's getting into the weeds with lots of bugs. So,
okay.
Does that answer?
And the last thing, yeah, that answer. And thank you for clarifying that, because I was a little concerned knowing, or just kind of your statement after Gary had asked. And then lastly, I understand that the process can be long and it can be anywhere from 60 to 90 days. But, you know, I think our community is committed, and whether they just found out via social media or have been aware, there was a long lapse where we weren't having the conversation, and then it's here. So I don't foresee an extra time being another 3 months being out of question for something that the public is still really concerned about. So that's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gary?
Yeah, so I have another question. We're adopting the guidelines, so can we amend the guidelines as they're stated here? We can.
Mm-hmm.
So we can propose an amendment. Do we need to close this portion, or can I propose it right now?
Well, I'm not
Okay.
talking.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, guys. This is really hard because I have talked to several people. And then all of a sudden at 2:30 at night, I was wide awake. And I have this one person saying, yeah, let's pass it. Let's pass it. And then I have this other person on my other side saying, we've got to listen to the citizens. This is what we were all voted in for. Myself was to listen to the citizens. So the only problem I have with any of the values is, once again, everybody has said Murray City is pursuing the development of a true functioning, authentic, and the historic. That's the only thing that brought anything out to me, was that section. And also the survey. We approve it tonight. We go back again after the survey. We go back and change it again. I don't see where the problem is, why we cannot just hold off, listen to the citizens, because that's who voted me in, were the citizens. And I just feel that we need to see what the survey says. That's my feelings. And I love you. You guys are terrific. That you have been so good. But I've got to lean towards the citizens, because they just have not been able to be heard. And it's not this administration at all. It's previous administration. And so that's what I've been hearing from the citizens that have gotten a hold of me personally. So with that.
Can I jump in, Pam?
Go ahead.
I did just want to jump in that with the reference to the survey and having to return to it, returning to things is like 90% of our job. So I do just want to highlight that a little bit of it. Is just a huge part of what we do, is coming back and constantly working on things. So that's not necessarily negative. And that's like, I respect your position. That it is a huge part of what we do, is returning to things with new information. And I hope all the residents know that we're all getting their emails, and I'm having conversations with people, and that I really value your input. But also I see the position of yes, being elected to represent, because we are studying, because I was there in November of 2020 and heard that and went on the walking tour and have read all the packets and understand guidelines versus ordinance. And not to say anyone doesn't, but just we have that extra responsibility to do those deep dives, because residents, they have their own jobs and their lives and their families. And we're supposed to take part of that burden off of them. And so that's why I feel very comfortable with where I am with this. And I just want to be clear that it's not because of ignoring. It's a lot of conversations, but it's also taking that responsibility to make that hard choice very seriously for myself. Gary, did you have something?
Yeah, and just to go on to that, so I want to speak to the citizens in District 5. My email was canceled, license was canceled for the last several days, so I have email again, and I've been checking on email, so I do apologize for those of you that I couldn't get back to. But I want to make a motion to amend on page 10 under value 01 authentic.
Yes.
That specifically where it says Murray City is pursuing the development of a true, functioning, and authentic downtown neighborhood, not, and then remove from, boy, I crossed it out already, so now I can't read it.
Not a historic replication
Of another time. So remove that portion and the or, and so it will read now, Murray City is pursuing the development of a true, functioning, and authentic downtown neighborhood, not another common open-air mall. And then at the end of this paragraph where it says the feeling of arrival must be fostered with activity to create a truly authentic downtown that unites historical Murray with modern Murray is what I propose, the amendments.
That all right, Gio?
Did you write?
Yes. Well, I meant like format wise, not asking for your vote.
And good luck, Mrs. Cotter, to try to remember every word that he just said.
You don't have to repeat it all.
He can amend it. He just amended it.
Okay. And that's your full amendment? I will second it.
Okay. We will now go for a vote.
Would you like me to read it again, just
Yeah,
to make
would
sure?
you please,
Yes.
one more time?
Okay, so Murray, so starting, I'm just going to read the whole paragraph, and that way then you guys can. So the Murray City Center District is the heart of the city's traditional downtown area. The city has many residential neighborhoods as well as large commercial districts, each of which has a long history of development and growth in the middle of Salt Lake County. Murray City is pursuing the development of a true, functioning, and authentic downtown neighborhood, not another common open-air mall. Development in the MCCD area should be thoughtful, purposeful, and representative of the true heart of Murray City. When someone travels along State Street and reaches the buildings, which have close proximity to the street between 4800 South and Vine Street, they know they have arrived in Murray. The feeling of arrival must be fostered with activity to create a truly authentic downtown that unites historical Murray with modern Murray.
Okay, do we have a
I second it, so we're ready.
Okay. So, Brooke, would you please do a roll call vote for us? Thank you.
I am going to vote no and ask just for a little bit more time, as I've already said. Thank you.
I'm going to vote yes, aye. And also with the understanding that we will probably be back.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. So this ordinance has been approved.
Just the amendment, right?
Just with.
So now it's amended. Now we have to pass the full ordinance as amended.
Oh, good.
So that was just for the amendment.
Okay.
Wow. Would you take a motion?
I will take a motion now for this ordinance.
I will make a motion to approve an ordinance related to the Murray City Center District repeal of the 2011 design review guidelines and enactment of a new design review guidelines as amended.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brooke, can you do a roll vote for us? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muting the wrong thing. Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay. Okay, so it looks like this ordinance has passed to 3-2. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, citizens, for coming out and speaking on this. Thank you, Zach, Jared, your committee, everybody. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Okay. We will now go on to our next item, business item. We are going to be considering an ordinance enacting section 12.24.175 of the Murray City Municipal Code, authorizing the mayor to establish certain parks and recreation related fees. Mr. Kim Sorensen is presenting. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. So what I'm asking you tonight is to consider adopting an ordinance that will allow the mayor to set certain parks and recreation fees. We talked about this last week, and let me just recap real quickly. When we say certain fees, these are fees that don't include the fees currently adopted or under ordinance that the council sets, which includes cemetery fees, golf course fees, park center fees, and the outdoor pool fees. These are fees like how much does it cost to buy a ticket to go to the amphitheater? How much does it cost to sign your children up or sign up a team for a recreation league? And things like that. How much does it cost for a shirt at the golf course, and on and on. With that, I will entertain any questions.
Council members have any question for Mr. Kim Sorensen?
Yes, I'm wondering is it for expediency? Is that basically?
You know, it is for expediency, and it also simply formalizes what we've been doing forever.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, do we have any other Rosalba?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion from the council on this agenda item.
I will move we approve an ordinance enacting section 12.24.175 of the Murray City Municipal Code, authorizing the mayor to establish certain parks and recreation related fees.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Cat has moved and Councilmember Gary has second. Is there any other discussion from any council member? Okay, we will now go to Brooke. Will you please do a roll vote?
Ms. Dominguez.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Flores.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we are going to go on to number 2. Consider a resolution approving an agreement between the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City Corporation, Salt Lake Neighborhood Housing Service, DBA, NeighborWorks Salt Lake, and Mr. Doug Hill is with us tonight.
Thank you. I was just looking in the audience to see if Maria Garcia's is here. She was here earlier from NeighborWorks. So
you saw her? Yeah, she was here.
Okay, yeah. I saw her also. This is a resolution that will extend or renew our agreement with NeighborWorks to provide services for low-income housing and residents of our city that qualify for low to moderate low-income housing. As you know, the city has worked with NeighborWorks and had an agreement with NeighborWorks for many years to do these services. For example, some of the services that they provide, the city is that they provide down payment assistance. They provide low interest rates. They help people restore or renovate their properties. And they maintain an office in Murray City in the Old Townsend Historic Home, which the city provides for them. So they do many good things to help, again, our low to moderate income residents. And the agreement just recently expired this past year. So the resolution and the agreement that you have before you will renew that agreement from January 22 to January of 24. And we're just recommending that you approve that agreement and that resolution. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Council members have any questions? Rosalba, do you have any questions for Mr. Doug Hill?
No, thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion from the council on this agenda item.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving an agreement between the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City Corporation, and the Salt Lake Neighborhood House Services, DBA, NeighborWorks Salt Lake.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Rosalba. Okay, it looks like Council Member, is there any other discussion from any of the council members?
No, other than I just think this is a wonderful program, and I'm so glad that Murray is involved with it. So,
And I should disclose I'm a recipient of a down payment assistant loan.
It will be nice to have them in my district area. So that would be great. Thank you. So, Brooke, will you do a roll call? Thank you.
Aye.
hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, aye. Thank you. So now we're on to number 3. Consider a resolution providing advance and consent to the mayor's appointment of Jared Hall as the city's Community Economic Development Department Director. Mayor Hales will be presenting, and then there will be a swearing in by our city recorder, Brooke Smith.
Thank you, Pam, and I love how you did that because you were afraid I was going to forget. So,
But like we did the last time.
that's why I know you did it. Jared, come on up. This is Jared Hall. You've heard from him all night long. We are excited as an administration to present Jared to you, and we had a wonderful opportunity to interview several applicants. Diane and Kat were involved with that amongst many other people. And poor Jared, it was a process and everyone's going like, what's going on? And anyway, so we appreciate your patience, Jared. Jared and I had a wonderful opportunity to go to lunch. If anyone knows me, I'm a huge lunch guy. I love, it's the opportunity to really find out who someone is by going one-on-one to lunch with them. And so I had that opportunity to do that with Jared and offer him that position at that time. And he seemed a little shocked, to be honest with you. Anyway, it was a wonderful opportunity. Jared has been with the city how long?
8 years this summer.
So 8 years this summer. Wow. So it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm really excited. I know the department is excited, and I believe the council is pretty supportive. We'll find out in a minute. But how do you like that? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, you can talk. Did you hear him? He can go out in the hall and you can talk. Anyway, it's just a wonderful opportunity. And Jared, thank you for accepting this position, and we're excited to have you on board. And do I need to present? I'll just turn it over to the council to make the motion. But do you want to hear from Jared first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we would love to.
And who's here with him?
And if you have any family here.
Okay, Jared, you're on your own, Jared.
Okay. Well, so I had a whole big thing prepared to say in my mind, but doing the things kind of took it all out of me. So I was just going to give you a really brief update on the progress we've made in transit-oriented development and Outlier County comparables, just really quickly. No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I know. I thought they might. So, but
I'm gay.
I just she's ready to go. I have to say I'm really happy to be here and to be part of Murray. And you've all heard me say that before. I love being part of Murray, and the things that we get to do here are so great. And tonight's a good example of the way we have to do things and the reasons that I like Murray so much. We're all talking. We're all going to figure this out together, and that's what matters. And the department, CED, the Community Development, I'm going to drop the economic because it's too hard to say. Such great people at Community Development, and that's the only reason that I had any kind of gumption to even throw my hat in the ring for the job, because there's such good support in the department, and I can't wait to do it. My family showed up partway through things, and so am I supposed to say who they are? So that's why I put my glasses on. So Shane and Luke, my boys, are in the back, and my wife Lanny is sitting next to Mark from the department. Mac, my son-in-law, and Kaylee and Finn. He's the only one in the family shorter than me. Everybody else is taller than me. My daughter Halen and my daughter Addie. So we're only literally missing Evie and Mikey. So that's impressive, because you can't get them all together on the same night. So my theory is that they came to make sure that I wasn't lying about the whole thing. This is verification. So you're great. Oh, Holly's gone too, and she is actually shorter than me.
You have to make sure when the evening closes that you all get a picture with the mayor.
Okay, we can do that. We can probably do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so council members, do we have any questions for Jared? None? Rosalba?
Yeah. Jared, I just want you to know I do appreciate the work that you do, and I do want to make things easier, and I truly believe under your leadership we will get there. And I feel reassured in your word tonight, so I really thank you for the back and forth, and sorry we took it out of you. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion from the council on this agenda item. Go ahead.
I will make a motion to approve a resolution providing advice and consent to the mayor's appointment of Jared Hall as the city's Community and Economic Development Department Director.
I'll second.
Thank you. Brooke, will you do a roll call vote for us?
Dominguez.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Harakis.
Aye.
Ms. Martinez.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. This has passed, and now we will now go into the swearing in.
Also, I have a comment. I am so looking forward to working with you on the RDA, and congratulations, and it'll be awesome.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And Jared, would you like your wife to come up with you? And
Because she's heard me swear a lot.
so this will be nothing different then.
Sure.
Okay.
No, there's not. Okay.
Okay, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jared Hall,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support, obey, and defend
to support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and to perform the duties of my office
and to perform the duties of my office
as Murray City Community and Economic Development Director
as Murray City Community and Economic Development Director
with fidelity.
Thank you.
That. Thank you. I think Mayor has to sign it, or is he? Okay. All right. Mayor, do you have reports for the council?
Yes, my report is that I wanted to also thank Danny Astle for filling in for, how long did Danny fill in for? Like 3 months. Seemed like 30 months, but yeah, that was, so Danny, thank you. We want to publicly thank you for filling in, and we look forward to this. And thanks for the council. What a wonderful night it was to hear from our citizens. And I don't remember who said it, but there's no question our goal as an administration and a council is to listen to our citizens. That is huge. We heard that last year a lot. And so, and it's a wonderful thing to be involved with the council and administration. It's really a great thing to be a team, and doesn't mean we won't have differences, but we're a team, and we would have supported you. And I told everyone, and we would have supported you however you voted tonight, that we would have been on board with 100%. We would have supported. And I wanted to make sure that I reiterated that, but I made that clear to them before. So we're doing great. And Tammy, do we have anything that we didn't really? Anyway, just no, but thank you for all your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions for the mayor? Well, unless there is any objection by a council member, we are adjourned.